Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to Orange Weekly, presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent, the man, the myth, the legend, syracuse.com's. I used to call Lindsey Kramer this, Mike, and I think I'm going to transfer the title to you. The Swiss Army knife for the Syracuse sports department, Mike Curtis. He's writing about football. He's writing about basketball. He's writing about everything, folks. No matter what you throw at him, the bat belt's got everything. He's got every tool on the belt you could use. Welcome back, Michael. Great to have you back here on Orange Weekly.
Thank you. I need to come on more often. You gave me a really, really profound intro.
You deserve it.
But no, I just try to do what I can. Wherever I'm needed, I try to just make sure I'm available.
Stepping in. I love it. And I'm glad you had time for us because, man, you've been so busy doing so many things. There's been smoke coming off your fingers lately. So there is a lot to get into here. And those of you that are watching us live, just know we do this every Thursday. We took the bye week last week, but we do this every Thursday around 1 o'clock live on our Syracuse Orange football Facebook page. We're on the basketball page today as well because we've got both sports to discuss. We also have a Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page. So make sure you subscribe to that. You'll get notifications on Facebook when we come on live. But if you do miss the show, the YouTube link will go up on syracuse.com, and you can find it on our social media channels as well. All right, and your comments certainly welcome as we go through the show today. We'll highlight some of them as we go, and your questions for Mike and I welcome as well. We love to have you guys and gals be a part of the show as well. So we'll do that as we go here live. So there is a lot to get into, Mike, and I want to start on the basketball front and we'll start with men's basketball, who had their season debut this week. Pretty breezy win over Lafayette, 97-63. They checked every box, it seemed like, in that game, but what were some of the things that popped from you in that game?
Yeah, for sure. One thing specifically that popped out to me was Colt Sweeney's performance. This is a kid who came from Villanova. And he's definitely more comfortable in the Orange's offense. I think at Villanova, they just wanted him to be kind of a standstill three-point shooter. But with Syracuse and under Jim Boeheim's confidence and leadership, he's getting a chance to display a little bit more. We see that he has the ability to dribble into the paint, get his teammates involved, or just take the shot for himself. He's making a really big impact on the defensive end as well. I think a good takeaway from last game is when Jesse Edwards got the block. I think it was kind of mid-range jumper. He got the block. The ball was going out of bounds. Cole saved it. It went to Jesse. Jesse threw it up to Cole, and it got him an easy layup. And he said after that game, that's pretty much what sparked that 7-0 personal run that he had there in the second half. He was able to finish with 14 points. Didn't shoot as well as he did in the first two exhibition games, but he said you can't make them all. But so he wasn't pretty much that down about it. But he did impact the game by pulling down a career high 12 rebounds.
That was big.
That was big. That was his first college career double-double. And the fact that he just didn't have to look over his shoulder while he was like missing shots or just afraid that Boeheim might take him out. The fact that kind of Boeheim told him at halftime, hey, your shots are going to come to you. I'm not going to take you out if you miss a couple. Just instilling that faith in his new small forward. I think that made the biggest difference for Cole.
You had a nice piece about that, Mike, in that little pep speech that Jim gave him. And I think that's big. But what really stuck out to me, not only in the first game, but in the exhibition games, is Colt Sweeney looks like he's been here for years. This does not look like somebody who just walked in the door. Now, he was recruited by Syracuse, had a mind frame to play for Syracuse, and there was a good tidbit. So syracuse.com did a great kind of video series similar to Hard Knocks. It's called Storied, right? And they looked at the lead up to the season. And in the last video they did, there was a clip in there from Cole's parents. And his mom said that day that Syracuse reached out, and they reached out to Cole as soon as they could, as soon as the transfer portal opened, they were in touch with him. She said there was a con that came over him when Syracuse got back and Syracuse got interested. So it kind of gave him a head start. He knew where he wanted to be. He knew where he fit. But, Mike, as you wrote about it, as Jim told him, it's like, look, I'm not going to take you out. We have confidence in you. You know what you're doing. But it's still remarkable that he has walked in the door and he's gained that much confidence from Jim Boeheim and the staff and the versatility of his game. I mean, we all know he can shoot. Jim Boeheim said it best in that one clip, right? And he can shoot, and he can shoot, and he can shoot in postgame. But the rebounds, the other parts of his game, that's going to be big for this Syracuse offense, Mike, because you got 4 guys out there that can legitimately hit from three-point range. Joe Girard, Buddy Boeheim, Cole, and now Jimmy Boeheim, of course, too. So there's going to be a lot of defenses. They're going to have a lot of headaches trying to stop him in this offense, particularly from the outside.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting how the transfers have meshed in general. We see Jimmy Boeheim has come in and he looks 10 times the player that he was at Cornell. He's out there making big shots, tough threes. He's defending well. He's making his imprint on the inside game just by getting little layups. And he's able to – this team is able to share the ball well as well. Yeah. Like, there's no one person going out there trying to get his own, although Cole does have the green light at sometimes. He's getting them up there. But this team really likes to share the ball. You can see it. I think it starts with Joe Girard. He had 20 points last game, but his assist numbers, his ability to be a facilitator, I think that's what's taking this game to the next level this year.
No question about it. And the thing with Joe is, like, if you're going to leave him open, he's going to hit those threes, right? And this is a guy, you've seen it, Mike. If you go to an SU game and you like to get there early, watch warm-ups and watch Joe Girard warm up. He'll take about 3 or 4 steps back from the three-point line and will regularly hit those shots. So if you're going to leave him open, he's going to take them and he's going to hit them. But you said it, 7 assists, 1 turnover. Now, there's going to be teams that are going to play better defense on him at that position than Lafayette. So there was one point in that game where Symir Torrance did come in. Jim was not happy with that. There was a shot that Joe took in the paint. You could tell Jim just wanted to, tell him, don't do that if it's not there, kind of thing. But he certainly trusts him to run this offense. And, Joe has always been a guy, Mike, as we know, who has – the guy averaged 50 points a game in high school. He's always been an offensive-minded guard. To see him be still in that transition, he's not fully there yet, but to see him transition to being a point guard is interesting. But, man, when you got Buddy, Jimmy, Colt Sweeney, and if the teams focus on the perimeter, Joe has made it a point to get in the paint more, distribute down low to Jesse Edwards, who I think has looked pretty impressive so far as well. So we're seeing that transition here. Joe, even told the media a little bit. Mike Waters wrote a good story about this, about how it's been a process and he's kind of getting out of that mind frame that he's got to do everything. But it feels like this type of roster that Syracuse has now is perfect for him to be that point guard he needs to be.
Yeah, going forward, I want to see what they do when the schedule gets tougher. I know they got Drexel coming up, and I know they got Colgate right after that. But after that, that's when it gets serious in this non-conference slate. You go to the Bahamas, you're playing in the Battle for Atlantis. The first opponent is VCU. And then they could end up going against Baylor, Michigan State. You got Indiana on November 30th at the Carrier Dome. It's going to be interesting once they start hitting that slate of non-conference games. And I want to see if this type of level of play is sustainable for them.
Yeah. We know this team can shoot, but they're going to have bad offensive nights. The defense will come along. And you brought it up. Swider's new to the defense, but used to it. Jimmy Boeheim, just by osmosis, he's been around it his whole life, right? But you actually have to go out there and do it. You have to play. You have to execute. You have to know where to be in the zone and all the adjustments that this team is making there. And, Mike, there were some extremes from that first game. Like, this team's not going to shoot 50% from three-point range.
Right.
They're not going to get 26 assists per game. There was a lot of things just that were based on the opponent, but you said it. You snap a finger and you're playing VCU, potentially Baylor, Michigan State, or UConn could be in their future in the Bahamas. Then you go Indiana in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. I may be out of order here, but then you go Georgetown, Villanova. And oh, by the way, let's slip Florida State in there, as there's a couple ACC games in December before they get into the full tilt in January. So Coach Pasqualoni used to say this a lot. The hottest fire makes the strongest steel. And that's certainly going to be the case for the Orange. And, Mike, as we've seen, that selection committee, the quad system, no matter what we're in terms of deciding who gets in the NCAA tournament, they look at that. And those November and December games, could be the difference between a team that's on the bubble or not. And we've certainly seen that a lot with Syracuse in the past 5 years.
Yeah, right now I think they're doing exactly what they need to do. None of these games, first 3 games, have been close. The exhibition slate, the first game against Lafayette, and it's kind of different from how it was last year because they had Niagara, they had Bryant, and those were kind of some close games. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show like the different personnel that they have, and then their ability to make those shots. And if they're falling, they can be dangerous.
So that's on the men's basketball side of things. The women's basketball team started on Wednesday night, and a pretty easy game for them as well. Monmouth was the opponent. Monmouth, they've hit a rough patch as of late. I think they were 2-16 last year. Not the most strenuous opponent, but Mike, that's what this women's basketball team needed because, look, we all know what happened in the offseason with Coach Q. We all know what happened in the offseason with all the transfers in and out. This is a brand new basketball team. There's only 3 players returning from last year's team, and one of them, Priscilla Williams, can't even play right now as she continues to recover from a head injury suffered in the ACC tournament. So everybody's running out there, Mike, not only with uniforms. I mean, they got their names on the back, but on the front it should have one of those "Hello, my name is" tags, right? So they've done everything they can to get to know each other. I know they did like some bonding things, and when I think you've written about it, Mike, they did a lot of team activities off the court just to kind of get to know each other. I know they want to push the pace and score and be an exciting team to watch, but they finally got out there on the court together. So it's only one game, but let me ask you the same thing about the women's team as we just did the men's team. What were your first impressions of that team being out there together?
Yeah. Obviously, this is a new team, 9 newcomers, 7 of them are transfers, players coming from all across the country just to play here in Syracuse. My initial impression was that this team is fast. They're going to get up and down the court. They're going to play hard on the defensive end. They forced 33 turnovers last night, which is pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, against anybody. Yeah.
And when you get those steals, they're just shooting it out to the front court in transition. And the recipient of those passes, a lot of them last night was Chrislyn Carr. Von Reed has said that this is one of the fastest players he's ever coached. She came from Texas Tech. She had a brief stint at Baylor, but didn't get to play. But she's flat out good. She's assuming that point guard role. She's not going to be, I don't think she's going to be the distributor that Tiana Monakahia was, but she brings a different element in terms of her speed, her shot making ability from the outside and on the inside, and she can get to the rim. And she has that handle on the string. I mean, like the way she dribbles the ball, you'd have thought she took classes from Steph Curry, it looked like. It was nice to finally get out and see them play. Jayla Thornton came off the bench and she had an instant impact on offense. She had a couple of tough mid-range jumpers and she was able to hit a 3. It was actually her birthday yesterday, so it was kind of cool to have her debut like that. But my first impression was this team is fast. They're gonna press. That's one thing that Von Reed said he wanted to do a little bit more this year. They couldn't do it last year because they didn't have the personnel to kind of maintain what the press entails. Like if you're going to press, you got to have the personnel to come in when someone else is getting tired. And I think Von Reed has that. Despite having 12 players, he played 11 of them last night. A lot of them got over 14 minutes. 6 players got over 20. So that's a pace he says he wants to keep up.
Mike, what's really interesting about this team, just from the outside looking in right now, is a lot of guards. The way that it transitioned, of course, Camila Cardoso was one of the big losses. Emily Anxler, one of the big losses. And those were front court players. They could rebound, they could score, that brought size into the paint. They're gone. And one of the adjustments, speed is going to be an emphasis for this team. And it's going to be what they lean on because there's not a lot of size on this team. So it's going to be interesting to see how Coach Reed kind of navigates that going forward with so many guards on this team. They're just going to have to push the pace and shoot the lights out, it seems.
Yeah, the first thing I thought yesterday, because it was so eerie. Last season, Obviously, I was covering the team with no fans in the dome. Last night we had fans. Football team came out and watched. Deuce Chestnut was there. I think Marlo Wax was too. But when I saw the height difference, and granted, Monmouth isn't as big either, but I was just thinking about when you get to that ACC slate and you're facing Alyssa Cunane, I'm thinking Camila Cardoso isn't walking through that door.
Yeah.
So they're definitely gonna have trouble with their size once they get to that ACC slate, and they'll get a chance to preview that Sunday against Notre Dame. That's the same night Felicia Legette-Jack is getting her jersey retired as the first woman athlete ever at Syracuse to do that. I talked to her briefly last week, and she's humbled by it. But at the same time, she told me what the number 33 meant to her. It's for it, and it grew as she got older. She as a devout Christian, she didn't know that when she selected the number that Jesus died at 33 years old. She didn't know her mom was born in 1933. Her mom had her when she was 33 years old.
Wow.
She's been in this coaching business for 33 years. And then she said that her first job at Hofstra, it took 33 steps to get down to the floor that the team practices on. So
that's incredible.
All
Isn't
of
it
these
amazing how numbers come together like that? Wow.
Yeah, she said it's a lot of aha, a wow, or just like a lot of moments that just it makes sense. So to see that happen on Sunday, that's going to be incredible.
And finally, better late than never in Syracuse's case. It was one of those things that just, for whatever reason got overlooked. Yeah. And, I started writing about it a couple of years ago and really started to get that conversation going a little bit about like, hey, why haven't we done this? And Syracuse had always kind of talked about it behind the scenes. Maybe they just needed kind of a little bit of a kick in the butt to get it going. I'm glad they have. They've really committed to it. 50 years of women's sports at Syracuse University. They're celebrating that throughout the year. Felicia's the big one, though, because she is one of the all-time greats in Syracuse history. She kind of laid the foundation, right? She was one of those first great players. Not that there weren't great players before her, but she was like the Pearl Washington of women's basketball, that first like boom superstar. And the fact that she's from Central New York, she's still around, coaching at Buffalo, bleeds orange still, that connection that's there. A lot of people, frankly, Mike, have made the connection that, if Vaughn Reed doesn't end up being the permanent head coach, maybe that's a direction Syracuse goes in, maybe starting next year. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But Felicia and the other athletes that are going to be honored through this year and going forward, they've got more plans for it. Kudos to Syracuse for finally getting that done. Mike, moving on to football. Yep, they're still there. They took a week off. They've been gone for a little bit. But I love when we have the conversation of the football team and the basketball team crossing paths, and they're both still relevant, right? And it's not, when is it basketball season because the football team is bad. And unfortunately, that was the case last year. They're one more win away from a bowl game, Mike. They got 3 chances to do it, and the first one comes Saturday, noon kickoff against Louisville. And there's a couple things that stand out when you look at this matchup. One is the 2 running quarterbacks, Malik Cunningham and Garrett Schroeder. Now, Syracuse overall is 3rd in the country now in rushing. When you're up there with the military academies and rushing, like you're running the football pretty well. Schroeder, there's a lot of attention on Sean Tucker, of course. He gets 107 yards. He's the single-season rushing leader in Syracuse history with 3 games to go, which would be incredible. Garrett Schroeder is also approaching the mark of the single-season rushing leader for a quarterback in Syracuse history. He's only 143 yards away from that, and the guy didn't even start until the 4th game of the season, which tells you how well he's been running. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Both teams have played a lot of close games. Syracuse, of course, had that string where everything was coming down to the last play, 5 straight games decided by 5 points or less. Louisville's had a lot of drama too. Unfortunately, it doesn't go well for them most of the time. They get in the 4th quarter, and this team has just found ways to lose more than it finds ways to win in that case. So Syracuse is a win away from a bowl game. Louisville is 4-5, and they got 3 games left. Syracuse, Duke, and Kentucky, and certainly they want to get to a bowl game. Lamar Jackson's going to get his jersey retired this weekend, so they'll be amped up about that. So a lot of things hanging on this, Mike, and Syracuse comes out of its bye week, and that'll be important right there too. Don't be rusty, especially against a guy like Malik Cunningham, because if you're still rusty, he's going to make you pay.
Yeah, for sure. I was at Dino's press conference earlier this week, and he was asked about Malik Cunningham and how he compared to Malik Willis of Liberty, who Syracuse beat back in September by a field goal. And he said that we gotta keep pressure on him. We gotta contain him. We gotta surround him with a lot of guys. Similar to how they did Malik Willis. They ended up sacking him 6 times in that game and forced a crucial, I think, game deciding turnover that he fumbled. So Dino says we got to treat Malik Cunningham the same way, but he sees them differently. He says that Malik Willis has the NFL arm, but he said he hasn't seen anyone as fast as Malik Cunningham at Louisville. He said, how did they go from a guy like Lamar Jackson to getting Malik Cunningham? So I think that's going to be the key right there. It's going to be, can you contain Malik Cunningham since he's the team's leading rusher? If you can do that, and if Sean Tucker and Garrett Schroeder can do what they usually do on offense, we haven't seen a lot of teams stop them both at the same time. It's either one or the other, or they're both getting theirs. I think Syracuse comes out with this one by a touchdown. I think we both actually had Louisville getting 24 points in our predictions. I think you went 28. I went 31, though.
All four of us, Mike, myself, Chris Carlson, Nate Mink, picked Syracuse to beat Louisville. So hope we didn't give it the kiss of death in that case. But Rob with a question here for us, Mike. As he notes, Coach P would say, as Brent quoted many times, the hottest fire makes the strongest steel. SEC defenses are good. I think Clemson's is better, and Louisville lost to Clemson a week ago, by the way. How do we grade Schroeder post-Clemson? Is his steel any stronger from that experience? What I see there, Rob, and what I see there, Mike, is comfort. I see Garrett Schroeder. He feels comfortable being the guy. He knows he's the guy. Tommy DeVito, I mean, not only when he hit the bench, he's gone. He transferred out. Yeah. And Garrett can finally feel like this is his team. You've seen it, Mike, in the interviews. He's loosened up a little bit. He can kind of feel like he can own it a little bit. On the field, it speaks for itself. You know, the passing numbers you'd like to see get better. But, I mean, consistently, he can run the ball. He's a threat in the red zone. And it feels like this team, because it was Sean Tucker's team for a while, and it still is in some ways because he's the primary offensive weapon. But I think Garrett he feels comfortable, and he can take a little more ownership on this thing now.
Yeah, for sure. I think Garrett knew what he was capable of when he got here. But I think he had to just play his role just because he knew Tommy had been here pretty much for the past 3 years as starting quarterback. I think he was just waiting patiently for his turn. He knew he was capable of leading this team. And I think now he's showing it. And I think he probably started to own that a little bit after that game-winning touchdown to Damian Alford. You saw right afterwards, he was slow to get up. But once he was up and at him, like he went and celebrated with the team. And he's pretty much taking ownership of that quarterback spot. I think it's phenomenal just how much he's progressed. Like you said, he's about to be the single season leader as a quarterback in rushing yards for Syracuse. And he started the 4th game. So I think that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and we brought the rushing numbers, and you noted there, Mike. You want to talk about a guy that needed the bye week? Garrett Schroeder needed the bye week because Clemson game delivers a touchdown strike to Trevor Pena, and he paid for that one. He got crushed on that throw. A week later, he throws that touchdown pass you mentioned to Damian Alford, got popped on that one too. So this is a guy who – so you go to the Boston College game. Syracuse won that game 21-6. There's not a lot of drama in that one, but – you know, when you have a quarterback throw for 50 yards and you still win the game, it shows you how well you're running the ball. Syracuse got a special teams touchdown in that Boston College game. And I actually talked to Coach Babers about this. We do a weekly interview for the radio, and I brought it up. I said, man, how's Trevor Pena feeling? Because he was this close to breaking one. Courtney Jackson comes in, and he's there for 5 minutes, and he runs for a touchdown. Right. But it shows you there's a little depth at that position. Things are starting to tighten up on special teams in that case. Schrader's coming into his own. But, Mike, it circles back to Malik Cunningham because Syracuse is right up there in the nation in terms of sacks. They have 33 sacks. They average Just under, I mean, it's about 4 sacks a game. The technical number is 3.67 sacks per game, but whatever rate that is, that's the highest sack rate per game in Syracuse football history. So the way they're getting after the quarterback, and that's been a bit of a transition, Mike, because the past couple of years it's been turnovers and takeaways. Now it's sacks. Well, you're going to have the ultimate challenge there. If you can get to Malik Cunningham one way or the other, you're doing something right.
Yeah, look at who you got right there at linebacker and defensive line. I mean, you got Kingsley Jonathan, you got Marlowe Wax, you got Mikael Jones, who's playing phenomenal. You got all those guys you got Cody Roscoe. A lot of those guys just want to get to the quarterback, and they're not necessarily, I don't think, trying to force turnovers. They just want to make the right play.
Right.
They want to bring them down. They want to cause tackle for loss. That they just want to make sure that they're being felt when they get around that quarterback.
John notes here, the thing I love about this team is how young they are. So many freshmen and sophomores. And, that's something that worked against them last year because they were down. So think of when they played Louisville last year, as a matter of fact. They lost that game 30-0. They actually contained Malik Cunningham pretty well in that game. But by that point, Mike, things had fallen apart injury-wise. About 70% of the roster was either freshmen or sophomores on the field at that point. Their numbers were down to about 60 or so scholarship players. To see where they've gone from there to now, one win away from a bowl game is pretty incredible. As John notes, even with a younger roster, there is some experience around there, particularly the super seniors that have contributed mostly on the defensive side of the ball. But it's a good mix of the Josh Blacks of the world and the leaders that have been around the block a few times with those young guys like Tucker and some of those younger players mixing together. This team plays hard. You can tell they get along. There's just a lot of things to like about this team, Mike, but I'm really curious about the road ahead because your best shot to clinch a bowl game, I think, is this week.
Yeah.
Louisville, team that we mentioned that is good, and I think it could be a close game, but it's had its struggles. If you don't clinch it this week, you got 7-2 NC State, who's currently a ranked team, on the road. And then you got Pittsburgh at the end of the road, Mike. And I don't like that matchup at all because Pitt is built to stop the run. They do it week in and week out. It's not like, okay, let's tailor this game plan to stop Sean Tucker. You just can't run the ball on Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett might win the Heisman. They're dropping like 50 points a game, it seems, lately. And even at home, I think that would be a real challenge for Syracuse. So best to get that bowl bid in your back pocket as soon as possible and just kind of see what gravy you put on top of the rest of the season after that.
Yeah, I agree. I know Dino Baber said earlier this week it would be a blessing if the team was able to get one of these wins in these next 3 games. And like you said, I think Louisville's the best chance to get it because after that, you got 2 straight ranked opponents. Syracuse hasn't seen a bowl game since 2018. So I think they're on a mission to get this. Now, my question is, if they don't, they finish this, if they lose out the rest of the season, how do you think this team will be looked at? Just knowing what they had.
I think people like this team and like the way they play and embrace Tucker and embrace that style. John noting they're the young players. So I think there'll be disappointment, but it won't be, grab the pitchforks and head for John Wildhack's office and demand a change. I think and that's what I said at the beginning of the year, Mike, because there were a lot of people, rightfully so. Look, this, had lost 4 or 5 losing seasons under Babers, the 1-10 year last year, even with everything that happened with COVID and all the injuries. Yeah. The bottom line, people felt like you had to clinch a bowl game to really show like, okay, you're recovered, you're making progress, you're taking a step forward. But the one thing I warned about, and I've written this and said it here on this show and other places, is the how was important to me. How is this team playing? How do they look? Are they fun to watch? Are they a likable team? Are they embraceable? So even if, 5-7 was the ultimate mark, I said, be careful about bottom line, no matter what, win 6 games or else. I feel like, and there's 3 games to go, so we'll see what happens, but I feel like this team has a lot of people on their side, if that makes any sense. So I think there'll be some disappointment, but I still think by and large, people will feel like they have turned it around and they are starting to head back in the right direction. But look, you can bottom line it too. Not only 6 wins, Mike, but you brought up first bowl game since 2018. If they make it this year, They've made 6 bowl games in the last 21 years. That's not a good rate. That's not a good pace for a program that, has the history and the reputation of Syracuse football. You got to up that pace. A bowl game should be the standard. You should make a bowl, 8 out of 10 years if you want to really consider yourself to be a big boy college football program. So I could see the other side of that argument, but if you look at the specifics of this team, I think people won't be happy about it, but they'll accept it if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I predict this team to go 6-6. We're kind of close to that, so we'll see.
I pick 5-7. I hope I'm not right about that because there's a possibility, Mike. They make a bowl game. One of the bowl games in the mix, Fenway Park. Now, do I want to go to Fenway Park in late December normally? No. But if Syracuse is playing at a bowl game at Fenway Park, I will be there. Okay. I got to go to that. So we'll see if that works out. I'm sure some other members of the staff would prefer a warmer locale for a bowl game. That's the Camping World Bowl a few years ago was in Florida. It was beautiful, and you couldn't ask for a better winter retreat than that. But I'll take Fenway Park. I'll sit on the monster and watch a football game. But they got to clinch it first. They got to take care of business on their end. So we'll see how that goes. Mike, I think we'll end it there for today. I always appreciate you coming by and being a part of Orange Weekly. Keep up the great work. Keep it busy. I hope they're giving you a couple days off here because you got to rest those fingers, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming on, Mike. Appreciate everybody in the comments and for watching. Just a reminder, Orange Weekly airs live here on our Syracuse Orange football and basketball Facebook pages and on our Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page Thursdays at 1 o'clock. If you do miss it, the YouTube clip is available to watch anytime. We'll fire that out on our social media channels, and you'll see a post up on syracuse.com as well. I'll be back with you Saturday after the Orange take on Louisville on Syracuse football post game. So get right back here to all these same places after the game, and we'll recap that one after the Orange take on the Cardinals. And have a great rest of your week, everybody. Thanks for watching.